and welcome back to the workshop. In today's episode, we're going to help this vise to not look like crap because it was built in March of 1946, and I don't think it's had a proper makeover since then. I mean, not a makeover, it's a restoration. It's manly, not a makeover. But for real, this thing is wicked old. Who even knows how long ago 1946 was? Billions of years probably. And it's had a hard life since then. I got it about a year and a half ago. I haven't used it because I wanted to save it all for a good, full makeover, restoration video. Before we do any decrusting of the vise, we need to talk about an area, a space, not so different from the end of the tailstock here. This is kind of a rectangular space, but we're going to talk about a square space. Today's episode is sponsored by Squarespace. Squarespace is an online website building platform that is simple and easy to use, which is important for someone like me, because despite the fact that I make my living off the internet via the YouTubes and whatnot, I suck at computers. I'm just bad at it. There's no two ways about it. It's embarrassing. Isaiah, who's editing this right now, can verify that I do, in fact, not do computers very good. But I was able to build a beautiful website through Squarespace because they have all sorts of easy-to-use templates for photo galleries and portfolios, and they have easy ways to connect payment processing platforms so you can sell your art or your work online. It's not a huge investment, so even if you're just doing what you do as a hobby but you want to be able to display it on a beautiful website, it's easy to do with Squarespace. Even easier when you go to squarespace.com/WillStelter for a free trial and 10% off your first purchase. So you can test out if you are internet competent enough to be able to build a website, but my guess is if you're able to watch this YouTube video, you probably are competent enough to build a website through Squarespace. They have all sorts of other goodies like members-only areas, point of sale for inventory tracking if you have a physical store as well, the ability to connect your social media platforms. It's all very good. Go check it out, the link down in the description down below. Thank you, Squarespace, for sponsoring today's episode. Let's jump back on in to the vise restoration. I'm sorry I said it like that, but let's. And before we take the vise apart, let's talk terminology here for a second. We'll start over here with the meatball. They call it that because it's a big ball. It's not actually made out of meat, contrary to popular belief. This one is actually steel. We then have the handle, the meatball, and the big piece of Acme thread that goes all the way through to right here is called the spindle assembly. The spindle assembly is held into the dynamic jaw right here via a collar that sits up inside a recess in there. You can hear that rattle around because it's loose. That's gross. I got gunk on my hand. The dynamic jaw has the jaw and the slide. The slide is the big piece that hangs out the back here, and that's what kind of, first off, keeps the screw covered from weld, bead, and splatter, as well as keeps everything nice and tight because it is a tight fit into the body or the static jaw of the vise. This is the static jaw, dynamic jaw, body, and then we have kind of the feet down here and the mounting holes. And then inside, there's only one, or I suppose two other pieces. There is a vise nut that also sits inside here with one pin that holds it, and that is what the piece of threading in here threads in and out of to make this thing go in and out. So I'll quickly tell you the story of how I came across this vise while I take it apart here. All I need to do to take it apart is take out one little screw that sits inside a collar that's inside here that's going to be impossible to show. Basically, way back when, 2020, I was browsing on Facebook Marketplace looking at vises, as I do almost every day. This thing was about 200 miles away. I was on it so fast because it was only $250. And that's pretty much how many pounds it is, $1 a pound. So a couple days later, hopped in my truck, drove, I think it ended up being like 12 hours round trip to go pick this thing up. And there was an issue when I got there. There was a dot of weld bead right here that wouldn't allow me to take the slide out. It butts up and it hit this, so I had to carry all 250 pounds of this thing, but got it back to Alex's shop and took a little angle grinder in 1 second, got the weld bead off so I could then move it around a little bit easier by myself because we didn't have a gantry crane at the time to be able to move it around with. Okay, so here's the dealio. This thing spins freely, which means that when you try to drill it out, that center part just spins. So my thought is, what if I can punch it with this to swell it out so that it doesn't move freely anymore? Then maybe I can drill it, at least for a ways, maybe, so it doesn't move. Oh! Okay, that looked like it moved in a significant way. Ha! Hey! It worked! Kind of. What in the world is going on with this thing? Did it have like one thread on it? Now we can unthread this, and that collar stays in there, but the spindle comes out. Oh my gosh, it's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen in my whole life. All right, got the spindle out, got the collar out. The scientific name for the inside of this vise is Goopius maximus, because this boy is crusty. Now that we've got the spindle out of here, I'm gonna put it in a trash bag and then put like a couple gallons of Simple Green in there, and then put water around it so that water will press in and get the Simple Green to completely engulf the vise. And the Simple Green, in its pure form, cuts through paint, gets paint off of there, it gets grease out of there, it'll just help clean up all of it'll cut through rust, so it'll get all of the goop out of here, and then we'll be able to clean it up a little bit easier after that. Well, with the vise completely submerged in Simple Green, we'll let it sit overnight and come back and check on it in the morning. Well, it's been not quite 24 hours, it's been about 20 hours now since we put it in here. I ended up buying an electronic charcoal starter to throw in here to heat the water up a little bit. Apparently the Simple Green works a lot better at about 100 degrees. I'm gonna unplug this so I don't destroy myself. Are y'all ready for some extremely satisfying stuff? I hope so. All right, these are some fairly extreme amounts of goop. Oh my gosh, that's so satisfying. I didn't even know that there was paint on here before. It was just so icky. Oh yeah. Well, with the whole vise completely wire brushed, sanded down, degreased, it's time to add a little bit of synthetic milk in order to blacken it. Synthetic milk is actually the best way to do it. It comes out super black, nice tough finish. Huge fan of the synthetic milk. This stuff is made by CRC. They call it rust converter. I don't know why. With the body of the vise pretty much done, I'm going to attack the spindle, get it degreased because it's currently awfully goopy, and then grind off one of the ends of the ball handles so that we can get the handle itself out of the meatball. We'll move on to cleaning up the meatball, cleaning up the handle, slapping it back together. Now I wanted to drill into the end of the meatball to be able to add a set screw to lock the handle in place. This will allow me to have a rapid traverse feature on the vise, which will be quite nice because it can open up over 12 inches wide. Now in order to get the handle stuck back together, we want to do it the traditional way, which is to hot peen over the end. I know how that sounds, but it's basically the process of mushrooming it out and blending it back into ball form. With the vise completely put together, it's time to move on to doing the mild steel jaw covers for it. It's just going to give a non-knurled, so a smooth surface for clamping stuff with, as well as protect the actual jaws themselves. They're a little bit beat up as is, and it would take an awful lot to get them filled in, and it wouldn't be super structurally sound, but this 3x3 angle iron will be able to wrap and form around the jaws and protect it, as well as giving a nice smooth surface for clamping. We've got the jaw covers on, we've got the vise looking all pretty and being all smooth and whatnot. It's time to move on to building its stand, because believe it or not, I don't plan on holding this onto this table with two small clamps for its whole life. It needs a real place to live, and that means lots of steel and some sand.
I don't like sand.
And it's floating at 660 pounds. Holy crap, that's a lot of pounds. Well, thank you guys so much for following along. I hope you had as much fun getting to see the progress on this thing as I did. I am just thrilled to have this behemoth back to work in the shop. It's been probably a very long time since it's been used seriously, and so I'm stoked that I get to be the steward of this vise for now. I hope I did it justice with the hefty stand coming in at 660 pounds total, 250 pounds of bench vise. So let's end it there with a quick thanks to today's sponsors, just Squarespace. Go ahead, check out the t-shirts and the Patreon and all of the other good things that are going on downstairs in the bio. I'll catch you guys on the next one. Bye-bye.